I get to wake up every day and inspire people to do what inspires them. If that's not fulfilling, I don't know what is. What would you like to be written on your gravestone? Whatever you want to do, whatever your version of success is, you will achieve it.
Michael Glassock is a coach, speaker, and podcast host who helps people in health and social care find joy in their chosen career in 8 weeks without feeling overwhelmed. Michael, welcome to the show. So great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Brad. It's an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to get stuck in.
Absolutely. If there was one message you'd like people to take away from this episode, what might it be?
It's a great question. I think simply that people are going to learn to be able to live their life on their own terms. I'm sure we go into my own journey and what I've done. But yeah, for me, if they can be one step closer to living life on their own terms after this conversation, then I think we've both done quite a good job there.
Absolutely. That's what this podcast is all about. So perhaps you could share a little bit about your own journey. What got you interested in this field and what have been some milestones?
Absolutely. So, it's a good question. I didn't just wake up from the womb and I'm going to be a coach. that wasn't the case. So I'm what you call a second generation immigrant. So my mum's Jamaican and my dad's English. So my mum was born in Jamaica and I was born in the UK. And the only reason why I give that context is because basically I chased money when I was young for a place of stability. And you often hear this from kind of immigrant or second generation immigrant families. Yeah. So I went into accounting and finance. I was all about earning money, nice and stable career. But very quickly realized that wasn't the thing for me. And from there, I actually pivoted more into business management and then fell into the NHS. So I had various kind of bits and bobs in corporate finance, but really didn't enjoy it. And then when I fell into the NHS, that's where I kind of felt like I found my home. Simply because those, the NHS is the National Health Service in the UK. And that's where you really do feel like you're contributing to something wider than yourself.
This episode is brought to you by Start With Values. If you'd like to reduce stress and increase fulfillment in your work and life, then check out startwithvalues.com. There, you'll be able to download the Values app, which helps you to discover your core values and bring them to life through micro habits. There is a values course so that you can learn about the science and practice of core values, and you'll be able to pre-register for my forthcoming book called Start With Values. I hope that these tools will enable you to achieve more fulfillment and make more meaningful decisions on your journey of life. Now back to the episode.
And from there, it was a really good time. I was there for 6 years. I did quite well. I got promoted 4 times in the 6 years, so I kind of progressed quite quickly. But near the end of that tenure, when I look back, I started to feel like, although I was progressing and I was doing kind of really big projects across, even millions of people, there's 1.2 million people across Mid-Essex, I lost the connection to the people I was serving. I was a typical project manager and not seeing the impact I was having in people's lives. And the real catalyst for me, I suppose, Brad, was I'm an only child. My dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And that was the real kind of moment, there's an expression of live life like it's your last day. Well, I don't quite subscribe to that. But when something like that, like to your dad happens, you do realize how sacred life is. And it doesn't mean it's been easy. It's still hard to this day. But that was the real motivate for me. And I suppose that's what kind of put me onto a path of coaching and down looking at different careers. And, I stumbled upon a podcast. I don't have to give much information about it now because it's so big. Stephen Bartlett, one you know yourself. And I heard a podcast with him and Jordan Peterson. It was all about self-discovery. And I thought, let's have a little bit of myself. And that's where I found the world of coaching. And I've never looked back since, Brad. So, yeah, that was the real shift. That was a real catalyst, I suppose, for my career.
It's amazing how podcasting is changing so many lives. I've heard from many, many people that it wasn't a mentor or someone who came into their life that helped them change or gave them the tools. It was actually from podcasts. And whether it's Modern Wisdom or Diary of a CEO, I mean, Stephen Bartlett is such an inspiration, and it's interesting how people say, "Oh, he was an overnight sensation." It's kind of, well, not really. He was doing the work for a decade, kind of thing, before becoming an
Yeah.
overnight sensation. It's fascinating,
Yeah.
yeah. And to have access to the thoughts of people like Jordan Peterson, love him or hate him, I mean, his message is sincere, and it's about empowering yourself and finding tools.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think, I often give the caveat or the prerequisite around Jordan Peterson when I mention it to people. But that was the moment for me to really look into kind of self-discovery. And I laugh, and that this is the God's truth of what I did. I simply went on to Google and I searched for jobs that help people.
Really?
That was my Google search. So it was quite a broad term. It actually directed me into a lot to clinical jobs in healthcare. But that's the first time I even found out what the word coaching is.
Wow.
Whereas now, for good reason, coaching is booming as an industry. There's coaches for everything. But for me, that's when I found out about coaching. And I kind of realized it was something I've done my whole life. I can talk about some examples where I kind of displayed a coaching mindset, but obviously didn't know what coaching was. And, I thought I like to do things properly. I don't want to just call myself a coach. I want to kind of do some kind of formalized training, which I did under the International Coaching Federation. So for those who don't know, that's probably the equivalent to a chartered body for any industry. So you've got your CIMA, your ACCA for accountancy. The ICF is one of the big ones for coaching. And from there, built my coaching practice, which actually allowed me to transition careers myself. I wouldn't have got the job and I wouldn't be in the place I am in now. So I'm also have a role at a university as a careers officer, helping grads and postgrads with their careers. Well, I didn't have any of the qualifications. The only reason I got that job was because of my own coaching practice I built through the kind of training and through the experience I have and the clients I serve. So for me, I didn't do things easy, I would say, Brad. But I don't want people to have to wait to a national pandemic or their dad receiving like a diagnosis for that to finally shock them into making key decisions in their life. And that's why really I love coaching so much, and my purpose, my why, my Simon Sinek, my why is ultimately to help inspire people to do what inspires them. And if I can do that, and if I can have even a 1% imprint on that in my lifetime, then I can rest easy.
I love it. Do you think it was beneficial to have spent all of those years in the corporate world, not that NHS is corporate, but in the workplace? Because you get some coaches who go straight out of school or university, become a coach. And sometimes the feedback I've heard is, how can they coach if they've never had any real world experience? So did it help you that you did spend time in a workplace?
That's a really good question, and something I hear quite commonly. So for me, 100% it helped. I would say. So I've kind of gone from, I was a graduate, then I was kind of a team leader managing 12 people in 12 different clinical services, then kind of managing projects that were in charge of 3 different organisations across Mid and South Essex, or a county, to work better together, to kind of doing all things around social value, which is very much kind of linked to my own morals and my own values, which is something I'm sure we'll touch on. So yeah, so much experience, so much life experience with different people. But that being said, although that definitely helped me, for me, that question points to a key thing: is what's the difference between coaching and mentoring? Now, for me, coaching and mentoring are similar but slightly different. So a coach helps you go from where you are in your present day and moves you past barriers towards the future, so towards future goals. Now, mentoring does the same, but the key difference in terms of the training I've had and what I see is mentoring is more directive. So say you're an accounts assistant, Brad, and you come to me and I'm your mentor. I would say, given what you've shared with me, Brad, given the nature of the industry, I suggest you do CIMA, you become a management accountant, you take these modules and you apply to these organisations. I would tell you what the path is and what the steps are to take. Whereas the key difference with coaching is it's more an equal relationship, and I would facilitate a space. I would ask open-ended questions. I would definitely challenge you, but rather than telling you what to do, I believe you have the answers yourself, and I would pull those answers out of you via the coaching skills I've been taught in. So for me, you're absolutely right. Definitely the experience helped me. It's had me a wider understanding of the world that people experience and the situation I was in when I was in a role that I didn't particularly enjoy. But that being said, I can still coach people that are far more experienced than me because I don't have to know what they're doing or what they want to do necessarily because I'm not telling them what to do. I'm facilitating a space to allow them to move to that future goal and achieve those things. So that would be the key difference, I suppose, that I would make between coaching and mentoring.
That's really good to clarify because I didn't think about that. So mentoring is more directive and coaching is more collaborative. Like, let's talk about it and let's figure out a plan. And where do you draw the line as a coach between becoming a psychologist and helping people with, real issues relating to mental health? When you study, do they help you define the boundaries?
That again, beautiful. So usually what I talk about, and you've led on it to perfectly, is I talk about the difference between therapy, coaching and mentoring.
Okay.
And you've kind of leaded on to that third sphere, that therapy. So for me, I talked about coaching and mentoring as present day to future. And for me, therapy is often past. How is the past events affecting you in your present day? Now, I am partnered and I have people that I kind of work with who are therapists and who are kind of almost mental health specialists in that field. So that soon as when I'm coaching someone, and I've mentioned this a couple of times to some of the clients I've already had, if they keep referring to past events or, I can't move past this past event, I will first and foremost reflect that to them to make them well aware of the language and the stuff they're saying. And if we find that past event is something that's a blocker that they can't get past in order to look towards the future, which is where my remit sits, I do right by that client and say, look, I'm partnered with therapists and mental health professionals. This clearly is a past event that's still troubling you and you're unable to move past. To best serve you, I suggest you can go with someone. You can choose whoever you want, but these are people I work with and I trust. And once you're happy with where you are, let's reconvene and let's kind of smash this and go forwards together. So for me, there's a reason why people like Tony Robbins are still in the game and still well known, because they serve from a place of integrity. And that is one of the values that I hold. Now, I could get rich maybe in a year, 2 years by just kind of selling people big programs. Doesn't matter if I'm the right person for you, but I'll be found out in 2 years. And my goal, Brad, and you'll probably smile when I say this, my goal is to work half a day a week coaching when I'm 80 years old. Now, if I'm just trying to cheat people out of this and not truly serve people, I don't think that goal is going to happen. So that is the key difference. It's a really good question. I think most coaches should be really mindful of where their remit is and their speciality, and have a kind of other colleagues to help support that client to kind of move them to the place they're seeking.
That's a really good differentiation. So if someone is constantly referencing past events, rumination, then it's time to really go and process and integrate that and then come back and we'll look at where you're going. That makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Okay. So for anyone out there, and I'm sure there are many people, I hear from many people who want to become coaches through the startwithvalues.com website. People are welcome to upskill in a certain area of coaching, but what's the process of becoming an ICF accredited coach?
Absolutely. So the start with values, I think first of all, is definitely something we circle to, because that's the thing I talk about the most. I think that values piece is so important. But from a formalized point of view for the ICF, so there are three main bodies, I would say, when it comes to coaching. So you've got the ICF International Coaching Federation, you've got the AEC, Association of Coaching, and then you've got the EMCC, the European and Mentoring Coaching Council. So those are like the three main bodies with coaching. There are loads of others, especially in the UK. There's one called the ILM, which is got around leadership and management. But those are the three main coaching bodies. Now, to kind of become ICF accredited or recognised, simply you seek a training provider that has gone through the kind of the testing and making sure their principles align with the ICF. So the one I went with is an organisation called Full Circle, which is a lady who is a master coach. So there are 3 levels. they're changing it to level 1, level 2, level 3, which I like, nice and simple.
Yeah.
But she's a master coach from Scotland, which is a place that I quite like. So yeah, I studied with them. That was, I think roughly, I can't remember on the top of my head, but I think it was 64, 65 hours of coaching.
Okay.
You have recorded sessions. You have feedback from coach mentors, so really kind of structured program. And by completing that kind of piece, you are then recognised as like an ICF recognised coach. And then you can then go from there to take examinations to kind of reach accreditation. Before it was ACC, PCC, MCC, MCC standing for Master Coach. Again, they're moving to more simplified language, which I love, to be level 1, level 2, level 3. So that's just one route with the ICF. There's many other routes you can follow. It is an unregulated industry, but if anyone came to me for advice to seek a coach, I would probably say, have they had recognised coaching training from one of those 3 key providers? If so, have a conversation with them and then make your decision. But that would be my first kind of parameters to filter a coach for you.
So legally, anyone can call themselves a coach. It's kind of like a sports coach doesn't go through a formal training program. You can just have been a sports person.
Absolutely. And I think this is where there's good and bad with the coaching industry. So it currently is an unregulated industry. And I wanted to kind of set myself apart. I knew I could take to me an easier route and just call myself a coach. I knew I had 6 years experience. I progressed quickly. I had a lot of life experience. I knew that I had this kind of gift because I kind of coached people before I even knew what coaching was. But for me, that wasn't enough. Again, one of my values is a value around lifelong learning. And that is simply one of the main reasons why I said, no, I want formalized training. I want to make sure I'm doing right by the clients, the people I serve. And that's why I went down that route. So for me, you've seen like famous footballers, they straight away go into management. Just because you're a good footballer doesn't mean you're a good manager of a team. You can be an amazing golfer, but you might not be able to kind of help kind of teach other golfers in terms of being a golf coach because you don't know the right language. You look at people like Tiger Woods and they say, how do you do that, Tiger? And they say, oh, I just feel it in my hands. I hit it and then it kind of hits to the right. If someone was trying to teach me, I go, yeah, but I do that. And it goes to the left. So that's not helpful.
Exactly.
So for me, that's why I think a level of training, we've got to be careful to not have too much red tape. But I think a level of training is quite beneficial and at least allows you as a customer or as a client to have some faith to at least reach out to that person and have that initial discussion, I would say.
No, I'm completely with you. And over the past, several years, I've had many requests to coach others. And to be honest, I don't feel equipped, even though I've run hundreds of workshops, like one to many, me to big groups. One-on-one is a different thing. And I think personally, I'm better as a mentor to say, well, this is what I would do in this situation. And these are 3 options that you might not have thought of, than being a coach where we really start brainstorming and coming up with ideas and letting that person figure it out. Because we often hold all of the answers within ourselves. We just don't ask the right questions, I guess. So yeah, it's a good differentiation. And I completely agree. If you're considering a coach, find someone who's actually studied the process of coaching and understands where the boundaries are and how to help you on your journey. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks for clarifying, Michael.
No, absolutely. And I think just what you just said, that philosophy, I think that's what made me a good manager. Because I didn't tell people what to do. And what I want to make clear is a coach isn't better than a mentor, and a mentor isn't better than a coach.
Yeah.
They're tools in a toolkit. And equally, I can drop into mentoring. I will often literally say to someone, right, I'm just going to put my mentoring hat on, and then I will start going into that space.
Yes.
So one is not better than another. But like you said, it's just nice to have that clear definition.
It really is. So let's talk about values. I was so happy to read on your website, and the link will be in the show notes below, and to have a quick chat about the importance of core values. I mean, they do get a bad rap sometimes. People roll their eyes and go, oh, values, here we go again. Our company's changing its values. Look, we're going to get new vinyl stickers on the wall in the seminar room or whatever it is. And that's true. Companies launch values kind of like another marketing campaign. But I'd love to dig deeper. What do values mean to you? What are your values? And how do you use them in coaching?
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I I love this question, and I could talk about values forever. I think, as you said, I always say they're not just kind of pretty words on a piece of paper. You know, done right, I suppose, and they can be ultimately the compass of your life. You know,
Yeah.
they can be really, they can guide the direction that your life kind of takes. And given the transition I've had in terms of like a very much structured and formalized career, and going through coaching myself to kind of come to where I am now in terms of, you know, having my own coaching practice, but then also supporting the future generation. I look at all of what I've done, and it's been guided by those, for me, four core values. So for me, when you get that pit in your stomach, 9 times out of 10, I would argue it's because it's challenging one of those values. So my
Yes.
values simply are freedom, fulfillment, integrity, and lifelong learning. Now, usually they won't be kind of 9, 10, 20 different values. You might even forget after the fifth one, I would argue. And values don't always kind of stand the test of time. There could be big life events that might happen.
Yeah.
You know, might be children, might be like the diagnosis of my dad with Alzheimer's that can start to shift some of those values. But
Yeah.
what I would say personally is they're not going to change day to day or month to month. They usually want some of the core fundamentals, the core components of your being. So if I talk about my coaching career and I suppose where I've landed, you can see, I suppose, why these aren't just pretty words on a piece of paper. So coaching, so let's think about freedom. I can technically coach from anywhere in the world. I can
Yes.
speak to wonderful people like you in the beautiful place of New Zealand. And if done right, and if I kind of do it with a level of integrity and I deliver results for 10, 15, 20 years, it will afford me a level of financial freedom, which is
Yeah.
quite important to me to support my children, God willing, when they come, and my family, like my mum, who's obviously caring for my dad. So that's probably for me the biggest value. If I don't have autonomy, you know, that it all leads into that word freedom. Now, fulfillment, I get to wake up every day and inspire people to do what inspires them.
Mm.
If that's not fulfilling, I don't know what is. I mean,
Yep.
that when you see the little light bulbs in people's eyes, when you ask that one question, and you know forever, no matter if they have coaching with you after that session, their path will just be shifted 1%. And
Yeah.
if it's a year, 5 years, 10 years, they're going to be in completely different places. So that's the fulfillment. Integrity. We've spoke about coaching being an unregulated industry. Now, it's really important to me. I have a small friend group. I take responsibilities very importantly to me. If I say I'm going to do something, I always make sure I fulfill it and I do it. And for me, someone is paying money. Let's think about coaching. Let's really strip it back. A stranger is paying money to be vulnerable to myself. If I'm not serving from a place of integrity, I'm not truly helping that individual. I'm not making them feel
Yeah.
safe, comfortable, and allowing them to move past their barriers or their issues. So
Yeah.
integrity is massive, and you'll see that in ICF Code of Ethics. And then finally, lifelong learning. Unfortunately, when you complete a certification in coaching, that isn't it. You don't complete your certification. You go, right, I've done it, Brad. I'm a coach now. I can do it for 50 years. That's the start of the journey. I will always be learning. I'm learning from speaking to people like you. I learn from my clients every day. I will constantly be doing CPD, different training. I enjoy learning. The learning is the goal. And ultimately, that's also why I run a coaching practice, because me personally, it gives me more opportunities to learn. So those are my four values and how they've actually been the directions to my life, and how when I now make future decisions, if they don't align to those values, I know it's probably not going to work out for me. But that's a real practical way, rather than fluffy words on a piece of paper, of how they have practically driven my life, I would say.
Yeah. What great values. And as you said, when you feel that pit in your stomach, you often are acting out of alignment with one of your core values. And I think that's so foundational, because many people don't realize it. They go, I find some things really stressful and the situation's stressful. And I go, well, let's unpack stress a little bit, because stress is a vague term. Some of it a little bit of stress can be quite useful in pushing us
Yeah.
through discomfort. But often it's kind of like someone values freedom, which is my top value as well, interestingly. And you're stuck in a job where, someone is bullying you or telling you what to do or micromanaging you. You feel stressed and you're not sure why. You go, this job is so stressful. The reason is that it's violating one of your core values. You don't have any freedom. How do you help people uncover their values or discover?
Absolutely. Absolutely, and that's kind of something I experienced. It's like a red rag to a bull. I always say, if someone's got a big core value of freedom, and you're going to kind of micromanage or tell them what to do,
it's a disaster.
It's not gonna end well. But to your question, so there's various different ways to kind of go about it. There's books, there's lots of resources, there's apps which I'm sure you'll include that will really allow people quite easily to take the first steps to understanding what their values are. Yeah. I think it is also a lifelong learning. I think it's a lifelong journey, values. Yeah. I think, like I said, I don't think they stay forever the same. I think they evolve, often after, like I said, big events. But I have like a free values exercise that I kind of share with people to basically start to uncover. It's almost like a list of different words that I get people to kind of shift through. And then I have purposely kind of open-ended but like targeted questions based on some of these words to see how they resonate to you. Now, for me, I use the word integrity. Yeah. And it's not the word that's the most important thing. It's how it kind of matters, or the emotions that kind of it drives in me. So someone else, it might be trust, it might be loyalty, it might be confidence, whatever it might be. But for me, integrity is the word that really resonates with me. So I would say, first and foremost, there's loads of amazing values inventory exercises out there. Like I said, I've got some, you have some as well, I'm sure. Yep. I think do that to at least start the ball rolling and get a bit more of a greater understanding. And then you can no doubt reach out to amazing coaches and have free sessions. Most people give the first session for free, so you truly understand what it's like to work with that individual. And you can start asking some of those questions. And finally, the final piece I would say is if you actually get some words and you actually start to resonate with some of the words through doing kind of some of these free values exercises, start to see how do they play out in your life currently. So, for instance, when I, say 2-3 years ago and I had my value of freedom, if I was to see how is this value being served in my workplace? How is this value being served in my personal kind of space? How am I truly kind of facilitating this value? And no doubt you will have a couple things that will spring to mind, and that might just start you in your initial direction. I think it's all about the first steps are the most hard for people to take. Yes. If you can just start that ball rolling, it's going to lead to quite an interesting and I would say exciting space.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you help people differentiate between values and ideals? Because some people will come up with a list of 10 things, but a lot of them are just traits, love and kindness and altruism. And you go, well, is it really important for you to act with altruism all of the time? And they go, oh no, but wouldn't it be a nice thing to do? Talk to me about that.
So what I think you've perfectly shown there, Brad, is by the question you asked. I wouldn't put yourself down. I'm sure there's coaching days ahead for you. You're not just a mentor. But no, absolutely. Like you did. I poke fun, but like you did in terms of asking open-ended questions. I think for me, and this is what I do in my values inventory, is when I get people to find, say, 4 or 5, whatever words it is, I say, if you were to remove all these words and only have one, what would it be? And for me, clearly, freedom was at the top. Without freedom, we look at the society we're in, the ordeals, the kind of things, the narratives that are pushed upon us. For me, freedom encapsulates so many different things. Having freedom in what I do, freedom on the impact I have on the world, freedom to financially and emotionally support my children, my family. It's without that, nothing, is possible for me. Yeah. So for me, by really kind of prioritizing, if you could only have one of these words, whatever that means or however it resonates for you, that's a really easy way to realize this is not just an ideal. This is a fundamental. This is a core component of my being. And for me, another word I like to use is authentic self.
Yes.
When I'm not in work or whatever setting I am and I have the mask on, when I'm my authentic self, so I am me when the world isn't watching, I suppose again, what kind of values am I showing? How am I acting? How am I thinking? How am I interacting with those around me? All of these questions can just start nudging people a little bit closer to saying, well, actually, that's a nice word. I wish, I might say love because that sounds nice to others, but actually, that's not important to me. What really is, if I could only have one word to really kind of fundamentally describe what's important to me, it would be X. And that's just one way to nudge someone a little bit closer, I would say.
Yes, that's a really good way of framing it. Brad was a kind person. I mean, or Brad was a freedom-loving person, whatever it is, but make sure that that actually fits and resonates rather than, just all of these other words which can muddy the waters. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on how people react or respond under pressure and stress? Because often our misaligned action happens in times of high pressure, high intensity. We go into fight, flight, freeze responses, and we're no longer values aligned. So what are your thoughts about, I suppose it's dealing with pressure and then restoring values aligned action?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So first and foremost on that, there's an exercise which again I like to try and share as many practical free things that people can take away right now.
Mhm.
As someone I follow, they say share the information, sell the implementation. Because if you can share the information that actually helps people, my goodness, what could they achieve if they were to actually work with you? So that's rather than keeping the secrets. I think it's a load of nonsense. I think we need to share more practical insight with people. So there's an exercise called a gravestone exercise, which I absolutely love and I do with a lot of clients. And it might be quite morbid, it might be quite emotional for some, but simply it does what it says on the tin. What would you like to be written on your gravestone? And for me, 9 times out of 10, it can, words might shift, the semantics might change, but it's usually a kind and loving husband, father, and son that sought to make the world a better place. It's usually something around that for me.
Yeah.
Now, what that means to me will mean something completely different to somebody else. Now, that is like my kind of fundamental. So when I am stressed or when I am in a heightened state, and I go, right, I'm worried about what people think about me, imposter syndrome and all this, this confidence, almost pandemic that we're in terms of a lack of confidence. When I'm on my deathbed, will I be worried about what Jeff thinks about me or, that I was one day late on my deadline, to that project or to that report to submit? For me, it's really aligning myself to that graveyard exercise and thinking truly, at my end of my days, how am I going to come across? How would I live my life? What will be the things I regret? And there's so many studies, there's lots of books. People regret the things they didn't try or do, not the things they did. They regret the things they didn't try or do, not the things they did. So especially when you're in a heightened or stressed state, if you've already done that gravestone exercise, it can be a real anchor in that moment. You can then start getting into little bits like NLP and like triggers, where if you do certain things and do, say, like visualizations or exercises with a coach, when they're doing that gravestone exercise, they might, hold a fist. They might do something. They might say the word yes under their breath. So when you're in that stress state, it's a very quick trigger to link back to that place before and realize, hang on, I'm in the stress state. I'm in this place. What am I really truly living my life for? What do I want to be remembered for? Okay, that again, this might not work for everyone, but that's just one thing that I've seen that's been really positive with some of the people I've worked with. So for me, that gravestone exercise is a real anchor for when we're in those heightened or stress states, because that will happen. And like you said, it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah.
I have a mantra to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And you're not going to
Mm.
get to a place of uncomfort without a little bit of stress sometimes.
Yeah, that's part of the growth process. And I think the statistics are 77% of the time we grow stronger as a result of adversity, post-traumatic growth. So
Yeah.
don't, don't avoid it. Sometimes lean in and you'll learn something about yourself, if not about others or the experience. Some very interesting points there, Michael. I think that gravestone exercise is fantastic because it gives you a little bit of space just to widen your perspective in the midst of pressure and go, oh, hold on. It's kind of like that infinite mindset that Simon Sinek talks about, like
Yeah.
step back and go, oh yeah, this is all going to be gone one day. So how can
Yeah.
I be my best version of myself in this moment? It's really, thank you for
Love it.
sharing.
I love it. And with that, I suppose, I don't, I know of my great grandparents, or I know they existed. I know some of their names,
Mm.
but if you ask me even what job they did, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Mm.
So that's my own family, only a few generations.
Yeah.
If I can't even tell you what my great grandparents did, why am I worried about what Tom, Dick, and Harry think about me or my post or whatever I do? That's my
Yeah.
own family that I can't remember,
Yeah.
and I'm worried about those people in front of me. I think that's, again, just another grounding thing to realise that so many people, we're all caught up in our own kind of heads, our own misery, our own issues, that we very seldom think about other people. But with that being said, I suppose I've illustrated my values, and you can clearly see, I suppose, how much I think they're important. I don't know if you've shared yours before, Brad, but I suppose what are yours?
Yeah, so certainly in the first place is freedom. Creativity is really important to me. I know that when I act in a creative way or create new things, it brings me great fulfillment. And in third place, family. It's
Yeah.
important, along with kindness. So kindness would be probably number four. And if I'm acting in alignment with those four, I feel like life is going well. I'm moving in the right direction. But as soon as one or two are compromised or violated in some way, you really notice it when you're tuned into it. And I try and use them as decision-making lenses to go, okay, in the situation, which value could I leverage or activate to help me do this in the best possible way? And I might be doing something really boring, admin, you know, reconciling bank statements and receipts, which sends me straight into a kind of freeze mode of my nervous system. But if I go, well, can I do this can I do this creatively? Maybe not. Can I do this in a kind way? Well, actually, it's kind for the bookkeeper. So let's do it and let's be really detailed and do it properly and methodically and just get through. And as soon as I've leveraged that value of, okay, I'll try and do the best I can in this situation, the pressure seems to ease a little bit. And there's other situations that are probably better, when I'm getting bombarded with requests. So I wake up, my team is in Europe, and I've got endless messages in Microsoft Teams. Okay, so creativity, maybe a little bit. Kindness, yeah. Let's give everyone the time that they need because they've taken the time to reach out to me. So that's kind of how I leverage them as real decision-making tools rather than just words on the wall.
I love it. I love it. And I honestly, I'm going to take that away, because sometimes when I do monotonous tasks that I don't want to do, if I was to remind myself, well, hang on a minute, how does this serve my freedom? If I was to do this and do this consistently, although I don't want to do this, this will lead to this, and that could lead to this, and all of a sudden, this is one step closer to that aspect of freedom that I kind of so cherish so importantly, or so proudly. That might just move me to a place of action, and that all you need is to get started. There's so many. I forgot the term for it, but once you start a task, even for 2 to 3 minutes, the momentum started, and you often, right, well, I might as well do it. I've started it now. So I really like that. I'm gonna take that one away myself.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I'd love to hear your perspectives on confidence. And I hypothesize in my book that confidence comes from trusting yourself, and trusting yourself comes from knowing your values. And I think you might like one way I frame this is I call values aligned action valiant. And I love the word valiant because it implies that you're willing to defend and stand up for what you believe in. But I'd love to hear your perspectives on how can we build confidence? What is confidence?
Absolutely. I love Valiant. I was thinking of Knights of the Round Table. So
Yeah, a little bit,
as soon
a
as
little
you
bit,
said
right?
it. Exactly. It's very, very noble, very, yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I even had like higher posture as soon as you
yeah,
said it. Yeah, no, for sure, confidence is such an interesting word. And I think, like values, I think the semantics is the first part. It's like, what does it mean to you? It might mean for someone to walk out their front door in the morning. For me, it might mean kind of actually looking forward to things like this. My younger self would absolutely laugh at the fact of me having to do podcasts and radio interviews, whereas I actually look forward to it. I'm like, I can't wait to do it and can't wait to get on. So for me, when I work with clients, I think the key thing for me is breaking it down and making it super tangible. So for me, there can be one part of like the fear of the unknown. So yes, we have a confidence or a lack of confidence, but what's the reason? What's the original source of it? Is it there's a fear of the unknown? Okay, I'm not sure how this is going to go, hence I don't feel confident in it. Okay, great. That's really good knowledge. That's really good awareness. Now we can make this more practical in terms of actions leading towards that place. The key one for me, the public speaking piece, and I've had this with many people, is again, I love the how can we move 1% closer towards something, because it really takes off the pressure of having to do a keynote speech or talking to a large room, at a conference for example. So for me, I say straight away, first thing you can do is either, you can write down the speech, you can read it. Second thing from there, you could record yourself. Nobody likes listening to their own voice, me included. And by doing that, it's a tiny bit moving out that comfort zone. I mentioned that mantra, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I got really good in my early days when I was a graduate. Soon as someone asked me to do something and I got that icky feeling, and this is not an icky feeling of I'm being told to do something that I don't want to do, an icky feeling of, oh, that feels a bit uncomfortable, I would giggle and go, right, I'm going to have to do it now. And I got so good, and I do that to this day. Someone will ask me, oh, do you want to do this radio interview? The very first time I got asked. And in my head, I said, absolutely not. There was a word in between those two, but absolutely not. And then I would say, okay, now that I've said that, I have to now do this. And by doing it, the second time I got asked, I said, oh, I don't know, but I have done it in the past, so I feel a bit more confident to do so. So the general principle you can probably see here is breaking things into super small, tangible kind of actions. There's 52 weeks in a year. Just imagine whatever that area of confidence you want to gain, if you took 52 small kind of actions, small steps towards that place, just think how far you would come in a year. And I think when I started my formalized coaching journey only kind of 3 or so years ago, and how far I've come and how comfortable I feel coming on things like this, going to places in London, like presenting to the Tate and talking to these massive rooms of people, I wouldn't have done that. Absolutely not when I first started this journey. So for me, confidence is being comfortable as your authentic self. Now, it can pop up in different situations, but I know now when I come into work, I'm unapologetically me. I am Michael Glassock. This is what you get. What you see is what you get. And of course, I'll be respectful and I'll be kind to others, but I'm not shameful to be who I am. And that brings a level of confidence, and people can see that in how you speak, but also how you act, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And that little giggle, do you still do that when you're about to enter an uncomfortable situation?
Absolutely. It might be like I'm doing now. It might be a cheesy grin or a smile.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sometimes I haven't had one for a little while, which I wouldn't say that's a good thing. I like to keep myself on my toes. But yeah, usually whenever someone asks me to do something, I think, I'm not too sure about that. And then I unpack it myself. I go, oh, okay, what are you afraid of? Or, what's holding us back here? And soon as I realise, it's actually, I'm stepping out that little circle or that little square of comfort, I go, okay, we've got to get back on the horse. Yeah, we've got to unravel another layer of the onion. I'm always learning more about myself. It's, okay, this is another thing I've got to do. And it's almost like a muscle that I've worked on for over 2, 3, 4 years, that now I pick it up in an instant and straight away I act on it. Whereas before, I would probably have said, oh, no, I don't want to do it. I would have thought about it for days, if not weeks, before then finally taking action. But the last big one, I suppose, is when I got asked, there's an organisation called the Tate, which is in art and kind of creativity all around the world, really, but 2 main bases in London. So you've got the Tate Modern and the Tate Britain. I was asked to deliver kind of group coaching to the Tate's Young People's Programme. And I hadn't done much kind of group coaching before then. So I was very comfortable in one-to-ones, but I was perhaps the opposite to you. So I was going into a group setting more. And I thought, oh crikey, like it's not only group coaching, it's at the Tate. And I thought,
Yeah.
I can't, I don't know if I'm not sure about this. But I flung myself into it. I prepared as I always do really, really well. And I absolutely loved it. And if anything, I'm more like you now, Brad. I think I even enjoy group coaching even more now, because of the energy, how peers keep each other accountable, how once I leave that space, people have built accountability partnerships or relationships with others to allow them to kind of prosper in life. They don't need me. I've given them the tools. And that's the whole thing about coaching. It's not about me and my ego. I don't want to be coaching someone for 10, 15, 20 years. I want to coach them, help support them, give them the tools to allow them to coach themselves. That's how I am doing my job properly. So yeah, I do still giggle and smile from time to time.
Yeah, it's a good tool. There's a rugby player in New Zealand. His name is Hamish McKenzie, and he has whenever he kicks 4 posts, he smiles and he does this big, and it's almost a big Cheshire cat like. And the research actually shows that when you smile, it tricks the brain into thinking that you're happy, even though it's a fake smile. And the brain releases some dopamine and calms the nervous system, shifts you out of fight, flight, freeze back into parasympathetic. And it's just through that one activity. It's kind of like, breathing exercises or changing your posture or power pose, whatever it might be. But there's so much power in those moments of intensity, just remembering, hey, it's going to be fine. And your brain goes, oh, actually, interesting. You calmed down. Maybe this isn't so terrifying after all.
Yeah, and what a problem to have, hey? Like I know it's a high stressful environment, and I think I forgot, who I picked this up from.
Oh,
But
Damien
for me,
McKenzie.
it's just
Sorry, I got the name wrong. Damien McKenzie, not
Damien McKenzie. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's simply, what is the level of your problems? For me, it's to try and utilize or cultivate different problems. If my problem is, oh, I'm feeling nervous doing group coaching at the Tate, it's not a bad problem to have. There are people that have far worse problems compared to me. I do a lot of volunteering with myself and my wife. We do a lot of volunteering in Calais and other places around refugees. I always remember how fortunate I was to be born in the UK. I could have been born in Jamaica under a tin roof. I've been given the golden passport. So I always remember that. Always really grounds me of like, what a problem to have. And that makes me smile just asking that question. I've got to deliver this kind of coaching to 10 to 30 people. It's a lot of money. Oh, I need to make sure they deliver that invoice. They haven't paid me that invoice for X amount of £1,000. And I think it's not a bad problem to have, is it? I could be thinking, have I got food in my stomach? Have I got a warm, I suppose, roof over my head? I know that's quite the separation from where I am, but what a problem to have, Yeah,
I love that. It just puts it in perspective. And something a good friend of mine said once, he said, when you're about to do that thing, and it was actually before my first really large speaking engagement, and it was a room full of about 60 bank managers. And I was freaking out. I was outside of this seminar room knowing that they were going to call me. And I was so afraid and so anxious. And I texted and I messaged this guy and he wrote to me, don't forget, once upon a time, you dreamt about this. And then he wrote, you asked for this. And I was like, oh yeah, I actually did. I made the decisions that led to this event happening. And it ended up being one of the, even though it was probably my third workshop ever or seminar ever, I still look back and go, that was one of the best ones I ever did. And it was just that change of recognizing, oh yeah, I asked for this. I was excited when I got the word that I was going to do this. Great point. And putting it in perspective in those moments that matter.
Amen.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. We've touched on many different topics. Something that I just wanted to say is we don't give enough respect to our ancestors. And, in many communities and cultures around the world, your ancestors are, treasured and remembered. something that I do is I just try and imagine them from time to time and just give a little bit of thanks, give a nod to those people who went on crazy adventures and journeys and, worked and tried so hard to ensure that their children and their children's children that would ultimately become us actually survived. So for those out there, if you ever feel lost and alone, I just always spare a thought for those that came before us who lived in potentially much more difficult situations than we are.
I love it. Absolutely love that. I truly mean this. My biggest role model is my parents. Like my dad was born in East London, which it wasn't. It was a very working class area. It's now very, as we see with most of the world, it's now gentrified. It's all hip and trendy. But he had tin baths in his garden. And then my mum was born in Jamaica. She was the eldest of, I believe, 9. She came over to look after my great grandmother in the UK. She still is pretty scared of the dark and used to work night shifts to earn more money to allow me to go on school trips. And I was spoilt with love. I wasn't spoilt with clothes or anything like this. I was spoilt with love, and I basically get to live the life to pursue fulfillment rather than simply security and survival because of my parents. So like you said, look back to what our ancestors have done. I don't have to look too far because I can look at my mum, and she did the hard work to allow me to kind of seek roles of like joy and fulfillment rather than just getting food and money on the table. So I absolutely love that, and I recommend your listeners to do the same.
Yeah, for sure. So group coaching, how is it different from one-on-one? How do you approach it?
Absolutely. So I really love group coaching. There's a level of energy with it. And I think and it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts. I think can be the hardest and both the easiest thing to do. It can be so subtle, some of the things you say and the way you manage an environment, that you can create absolutely kind of beautiful kind of places of positivity. But if you're not careful and you don't nip things in the bud, it can all of a sudden go downhill very quickly. So that's why I say it's the hardest, but both the easiest thing to do. I'm sure you've had sessions where you facilitate a space. You can see people in groups, whatever it is, their feedback. You can see how they're bigging each other up. They're kind of supporting each other, and your work's done. You can simply sit back. You can kind of reflect and pick up the key themes of the session and really kind of help kind of support that space. Whereas you really, you earn your money, let's say, and you're having to really tackle certain attitudes in order to not bring the mood down of the session, make sure you're keeping people on track. It really can be a beautiful environment. For me, I do this both with one-on-one and group, but I really focus this on group coaching. I really, really focus on creating a place of safety and kind of confidence or trust in me as the coach or the facilitator. So whenever I do group coaching, as opposed to one-on-one, I will always make myself vulnerable and humanize myself to my audience very quickly. I've often done things like simple, silly things like, this is the answer, what's the question? And I've got like a picture of Scotland, a picture of the year I got married, different things like that, just to humanize myself a little bit.
Okay, nice.
I've often done silly things. And now I've done this to senior leaders in the NHS, like directors and kind of chief, people on boards, and they love it. I've done 2 truths, 1 lie. So I've got a picture of me and my, like a karate image when I trialled for England for karate, and lawn bowls. Quite the difference. So old man bowls, as I call it. I've got kind of pictures of all different things. And I say, like, 2 of these are truth, 1's a lie. And straight away, that creates a nice joyful, a nice playful environment. I've humanized myself. I've made myself vulnerable. So then in turn, they can be a little bit vulnerable themselves and share their kind of their emotions and whatever we're covering. So for me, there are lots of differences between one-on-one and group coaching. But in terms of just my focus as a facilitator, I'm super, super focused when I deliver group coaching, especially if it's to a new group that I haven't had to meet beforehand, to humanize and make myself appear vulnerable from the beginning, so that then they will reciprocate that when we have the session. So that's my big focus. But I'm really, interested in your understanding, I suppose, from what you've delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great tool to use. And I do the same. I very, very early on in the session, I'll show that I'm not perfect. I'm on this journey with you. I'm learning these skills as well. It just so happens that I've been fortunate enough to move along a path where I've helped many developing these tools and sharing these ideas. However, I'm not perfect, and I always try and I say, this is not prescriptive. I'm not telling you what to do. Here's some ideas that might support you on your journey. And I make fun of myself a lot. And I talk about how I've failed in some of these tools. And I give examples of, my daughter did this, and this is how I reacted, and I wished I hadn't. And so I think it's the exact same thing. Just humanize it, show vulnerability, and be an ally on their journey rather than, the guru who comes down from the hill.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And it doesn't matter if they're young people, senior leaders, they've done it for a year or 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it goes a long way. Absolutely.
It does. Yeah. And, you develop skills along the way for bringing attention back, for tuning in. My number one recommendation for people who are going to run group workshops or seminars is just, and it takes practice, right? To get to a point where you're confident enough in your own material that you're no longer thinking about the material. You're tuning into the audience, and you're looking at their facial expressions, and you're noticing someone is yawning at the back there. Someone's got their phone out. Someone is looking a little bit agitated. There's a boys' club. There's often a boys' club who sit there like, I've been told to be here by my boss, so I'm here, but I don't really want to be here. And tuning into the dynamics in the room, and then playing with that a little bit and saying, okay, it's time to stand up. Let's move around. That presence is so important, but it takes time. It takes time just being in front of a room, like anything.
Absolutely. And I think, the stories we tell ourselves, I'm very mindful of the language I use as a coach. Yeah. I would say I have elements of kind of neurodiversity. So one element of that would be around kind of like ADHD. And I think this is why I say languages. There you go. Yeah. I think how we speak about these things is very important. So I'm learning more and more about it day in day, because, touch wood, if I have children, no doubt they might have elements, so I can help support them. But the reason why I say all this is I see it as a superpower. So especially in group coaching, when our minds, Brad, I suppose, work like a pinball machine, and it's kind of ding, 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 it's amazing for group coaching, because I can see exactly what you said. I can see the person in the back of the room. I can see they're doing this. You're talking to so-and-so. And then within a split second, I can feed into like whatever I'm saying or seeing, into the speech that I'm talking about. So I can see someone's kind of talking about, I can hear someone talking about reggae music. And then I might kind of talk and and you never know, we might even have some reggae music in 5 seconds. And then all of a sudden they're looking up, oh Christ, he's listening to me. Yeah. And it's not affecting my flow at all. So that's why I think even stuff like neurodiversity, I think we've got to be super careful with how we treat it and the language we use, because that's my superpower. That allows me to deliver even better,
I actually never thought about that, but my ADD, I'm not sure if I have the hyperactivity part, but I'm definitely, I struggle focusing, except in group sessions, and I'm so tuned into it. And I never actually thought about that, but I do pick up on every little cue in the room. Maybe that is one of the superpowers that it gives you. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to be, you have to be mindful of these things. I know, as I build my practice and the journey I'm on, this might be an excuse, but I'm in a difficult place as I'm in that building journey, because I have no problem with delegating. So I know that, what is the thing that I do best that I can do for a day? Same with ADD, pardon me. It's quite easy to have hyperfocus. So if I find the thing I'm really good at and I enjoy, I can do it for 6 hours. Yeah. Whereas if I find something I don't, I procrastinate for 2 weeks. So it's really just being more in touch with the things you're good at and not so good at. And hence why, as I build this practice and I build my journey, no doubt I'm excited, because I'll be more than happy to delegate certain aspects and then hyper focus on the things that, I love and I enjoy.
Very good. You mentioned martial arts. How has martial arts and reaching an elite level shaped your view of the world?
That's such a beautiful question, Brad, because I think it ties into so many things. It ties into ego. It ties into kindness and treating others. It ties into discipline. I think when I look back, I realise how much of an impact it's had on me. So I did karate. I did a school of karate called Kokushin, and I did it really young when I was in my early years. and this is not me boasting, but I got to a second brown to the one before black. But at the time, I couldn't go for a black belt because as part of the exercise, you had to do knuckle push-ups. And I wasn't of an age. You had to be a certain age before you could do knuckle push-ups because your body, obviously needs a form. So I really got involved in kind of more simulated fights for rather than using the kind of Japanese or whatever terminology. And that's what kind of kept me busy for a certain period of time. But at the time, I just wanted the ego of a black belt, and because I couldn't do it, I kind of lost interest. Now, although I kind of fell out of it, it taught me so much about there's repercussions to what you say to others. You can't just kind of mouth off to others because you don't know how someone might react. And by having that kind of karate and having that grounding, it's very silly. I knew I could protect myself at all times. I was very confident in my ability. But it didn't mean I would go mouthing off to others or kind of have an inflated ego. It just allowed me to be calm and know if anything happens, I'm calm and I'm confident in my own ability. But equally, someone else might be. And that allows you to be more understanding, more respectful for others because you have no idea what people have been grounded in. I didn't used to speak a lot about my karate when I was young. It's only now I'm older I talk about it. But the discipline that you have and the respect for others, it's so grounded in respect for others. I would argue the population, if they were to do whatever discipline of martial arts it was, I don't think it would have a negative impact at all. I think it would really allow people to be more kind and respectful of others, and to be more disciplined in what you do. But I'm interested. Did you have any experience in martial arts, or is it any or sport in your younger age? Or
No, absolutely. So I've always had an interest in martial arts. I did judo when I was younger as a child.
Yes,
and a little bit of karate, and then later on, in recent years, I tried Muay Thai kickboxing.
nice.
And
Yes,
the first thing I noticed when I've tried any martial arts is it forces you to focus. Because if you're not focused and you're holding the pads for someone, they're going to hit you in the face. And that was a big, that was such an important thing because my mind would be constantly exploring, oh, what about this? And I'm going to do that. And there's this idea. And then you get hit in the face and you're like, okay, I need to focus. This is not the time. And it's a form of meditation, really. That's what I discovered, as well as, of course, exercise and as well as being highly tuned into your form. So I love it. And the other sports that I love, which is very similar in a way, is surfing. So I was fortunate to live in a town called Durban in South Africa, and surfing was my first love. It was the first time I experienced flow state where I was no longer thinking about the mechanics of what I was doing. And I was just like, I still remember one of the first waves that I ever caught properly. And there's this light coming through the green, like ocean wall. And I was like, I'm flying. I just never want to stop doing this. So martial arts and surfing have both been really important in my journey. Thanks for asking.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. And I want to get back into, during COVID, all of the studios closed and all of that kind of stuff. So I think martial arts is a wonderful practice. I'm going to get back into it, but I'm not sure which one to try. MMA is a bit full on and there's a gym down the road, but I don't really want to be like trying to stop takedowns and doing jiu-jitsu. I know it's for some people, they love it, but I think I prefer just more of the traditional kind of karate, kung fu, that kind of thing. So I just have to find a place to go.
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by kind of UFC and then MMA. I often, a lot of the fights are kind of US, but I would definitely say I'm a casual boxing fan. So I've still not lost that kind of love for martial arts. I've more kind of started to go into more like, conventional team sports and stuff like that now. But I definitely haven't lost the appetite to kind of watch it from afar. So
who's your favorite UFC star?
So I forgot the chap's name now. He's a UK chap. So there's three I like. So obviously I love Conor McGregor. I'm very good at separating things. So I can separate the ego of the man to what he brings in the performance. Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant. Yeah.
And he changed the game. He was, in terms of the time when I started getting into the UFC, it basically was the time when Conor McGregor started. So I followed his whole rise and you could argue fall in terms of his journey to the UFC. I really, there's another chap who's quite funny, Paddy
Oh,
Pimblett,
Paddy Pimblett,
who's a Scouts
yeah,
chap.
yeah,
I
he's funny.
really like, I forgot the guy's
Leon,
surname. I think he's called Sugar Sean.
oh, Sugar
So he's a
Sean O'Malley.
Finn.
Yeah.
That's the one. Love him.
Mhm.
So technical, so crisp.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. He's like
Mm.
Finn, and this is what teach again. Going back to my point about martial arts. If you saw him on the street, someone inclined might pick on him, and it's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah. He's an assassin.
It'd be the worst thing you could do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the final one I do like is I forgot the chap's name. I'm sure he's British. I think it's Tom. Is it Tom Aspinall?
Oh, Tom Aspinall. Yeah.
It is.
It's
It
great.
is. Yeah. I didn't know if I got the surname right, but yeah. So the ones I kind of follow. I like Sean.
Nice.
I like Tom. Tom Aspinall is obviously going on the out. There's so many. I forgot all their names. There's another guy who was quite big but fell off. The final one I do like. He competed for the BMF the BMF fight.
Max Holloway.
He fought one of the Nate brothers.
What's his name?
He's like Mexican-y.
Yeah. How can I forget his name? He's out of the UFC now. It's Jorge
Masvidal.
Masvidal, that's the one. Yeah.
That's the one. I like so as you can see, I'm like fairly, I'm joyful, I'm happy, I'm humorous. Yeah. But I like the alter egos to me. I like the people who've got a bit of an edge.
Yeah. And they have to have incredible self-belief in order to do what they do. I have nightmares sometimes. This is one nightmare I've had twice, and I don't have a lot of nightmares, by the way. So that's why I remember it. I'm suddenly walking into a cage to have an MMA fight, and I'm going, hold on a second, I really don't want to be here right now. And there's some like really scary looking dude on the other side. I'm like, I haven't practiced. I don't know what. And I'm like going over like, and now it touched gloves, and I'm like, please, can you not hurt me? Like, this is it's such a weird dream, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm sure you'll have to get a dream. There are people there, dream specialists on, and they can decipher your dream.
Did 2 weeks ago, so it's coming up.
Nice. Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, I've taken up more of your time than planned, but how can people connect with you if they want to find out more about the work that you do?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, it's been a pleasure to be here and speak with you, Brad. I sought you out because I love your story around values, and it's something that I hold true to myself. So first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity. If people would like to kind of connect, simply type in Michael Glassock Coaching. Glassock is spelled Glassock, but I'm sure there'll be a link for you to follow. Michael Glassock Coaching, you'll find my website. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram as well. Those will be the three best places to follow me and to help you on your journey. Like I said, I'm here to help inspire people to do what inspires them. And I suppose I've lived that journey myself. So I know a thing or two about it to hopefully help you.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's been a real pleasure. Feels like we are kindred spirits in a way on the opposite sides of the world. Look forward to doing this again. Any final thoughts for those who stuck with us all the way?
Absolutely. So the final thing I would share is 2 words. It's curiosity and consistency. If you live your life with curiosity and consistency, whatever you want to do, whatever your version of success is, you will achieve it. We look at the biggest people, the most successful people in the world. They never thought they knew everything. They were always curious, always wanting to learn more, and they were consistent. We talk about overnight successes. 9 times out of 10, they were doing that thing for 10 years before they blew up. If you are curious and consistent, God willing, you will be able to achieve whatever you set out to achieve.
What a way to finish. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode. We'll see you next time.